Hey moms, welcome to the Mom Mindset Show where we talk all things mom life from A to Z. I'm your host, Rachel Benson. I'm a wife, a mom of 6, a grandma of 7, a real estate agent, and a life coach for moms. I've been through every age and stage of motherhood, and I've never met one I didn't like. I've also never met one that didn't come with its share of challenges and personal growth. As moms, we set the mood and tone of the home. We're the emotional support and the cheerleaders for everyone in the house, not to mention the cook, the chauffeur, and the housekeeper. There's a lot to know and do, and that's what I'm here to help with. I want to help you create the home and family life of your dreams, and I do that not only by helping you with the skill set, but more importantly, the mindset that can really help you succeed as a mom. Thanks for being here. Let's talk about what's on your mind today. Hey mom friends, how you doing? Are you enjoying a little bit of spring weather wherever you are? We still have snow in the mountains, but the days are getting longer and warmer, and I am totally feeling that spring energy. I don't know about you, but I feel like if you give me a good spring day, especially like 70-degree weather, it's such a dream. I just feel like I could conquer the world. I can do anything on a beautiful spring day. Except the only problem I encounter is when spring rolls around and I look at the aftermath of the yard from winter. And then I remember, oh, now I have inside work and outside work to do. I'm like, oh, dang it. And anyway, so it is just wonderful, though, to be able to get out and feel a little bit of sun. I hope you're getting that where you live, too. So that thought that I just let in with about how I'm excited for spring, but also I remember that now I have to do inside and outside work, which I enjoy outside work, but it's just more work generally, as spring comes along. So I actually did that for a reason. And the reason was that I wanted to kind of show you how we have a lot of little thoughts like that every day. Like, oh, spring is here, yay. Oh, shoot, now I have more work to do. And along with thoughts like that comes a feeling of overwhelm very quickly, or with other thoughts that we might have about, oh, spring cleaning, or, it could be anything, or the kids are going to be home from school soon. Oh my goodness, summer's going to hit. And I know all moms have a lot of different thoughts and feelings about that. So I know when I had a lot of young kids at home and a lot of friends coming over to play, summer days just seemed like they went on forever. Fun as they were, it was a lot. And sometimes I'd end up with 25 cups on the table at the end of the day. And I get emotional about the end of the school year. It just seems like such a big passage of time. And so I had a lot of thoughts about that. And what I want to talk to you about today is something I call noticing the negative, because there are so many little sneaky thoughts, like I was just mentioning, like, oh my goodness, spring means more yard work. Summer with all the kids running in and out means more housework, more, longer days to entertain the kids, things like that. And those kind of thoughts can actually create a real buildup of overwhelm and frustration and just some unconscious negativity that can really bring us down when it's like going on all the time in the back of our minds and we're not even aware of it. So I have a little phrase I use called notice the negative, because I truly believe that our negative and limiting thinking is the cause of so many of our problems and frustration. Our thoughts create our feelings 100% of the time. This is true. You can take this to the bank. And thoughts like, oh my goodness, all that yard work in spring, like some people might rejoice over that, so that wouldn't be a problem for them. But for someone like me who's like, oh, I love working in the yard, but also sometimes not, and thinking how it's going to double my workload can immediately cause overwhelm for me. And if you don't like long summer days with the bored kids at home, that can also be a source of overwhelm. And we're going to talk more about a lot of different thoughts like that as this podcast goes on. So I've mentioned before on the podcast that experts say that about 90 to 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. And of those, that high percent of repetitive thoughts, about 80% of them are negative, which kind of seems impossible. But honestly, I've evaluated this and I can see how that could be true. I'm sure it varies from person to person, but truly, our brains are wired to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and just keep things simple and easy. Experts call that conserving energy, and that's called the motivational triad. So anything that looks to our brain like it's going to take a lot of extra energy and effort and thought and problem solving, we can just almost immediately go to a negative thought. So I want to help you today to recognize when this is happening for you so that maybe you can start to experience less stress, frustration, overwhelm, if those are things that you find yourself dealing with a lot. Even a lot of people out there deal with a ton of anxiety. And the root of anxiety is anxiety-producing thoughts. Now, you're probably like, tell me something I don't know, but they become so repetitive. And when something is repetitive, like the way that we drive home each day from school or work or wherever we go, our brain just kind of puts it on autopilot. So we don't even have to consciously process a negative thought. A lot of the time it's going to be unconscious. So I want to help you recognize when you are having that happen. And one of the ways that you can notice is the sensations in your body. When you start maybe feeling heavy or what I would describe as thumpy, or you feel that tied up in knots feeling in your stomach that you might associate with anxiety. Or for me, anxiety feels more like, I call it bad butterflies, kind of up in my throat, kind of even sometimes a choking or throw up feeling. If you feel tired, if you feel like a heaviness in your heart, that can be a sadness or an overwhelm kind of thing. And we may not even recognize the thoughts that are causing it. So the thing is, we go about our day in often a repetitive way, which helps promote these repetitive thoughts. And we might have just 5 or 6 that are just kind of always rattling around in there. Like, I'm always so tired and sleep deprived. The house is always messy and it's so overwhelming. There's always more laundry to do. There's always toys to pick up. And I really don't get any help around here. The money's always tight and it seems like we'll never get ahead. The kids are always fighting. Do you identify with any of those? Or what are yours? Like, what comes to mind when I talk about thoughts that overwhelm you or frustrate you or make you angry or sad? I'll tell you about a couple of mine that are maybe going to sound funny, but they happen over and over and over again. And they're just like these little hits of negative emotion throughout the day. So one of them, maybe I'm not the only one that does this, but every time one of my kids calls me, before I pick up, I have this feeling of, something's wrong with somebody, one of the kids or grandkids. And so I have this fear, just this dread fear comes up in me every time I pick up the phone for one of my kids. Like, it's better with some kids than others, but I just always have that feeling for a second until I hear their voice and I know everything's fine. Now, there have been so few times over the years that I've picked up to any kind of an emergency, but I think it's just like they text me the majority of the time, so a call seems like it might be more important. I've never really thought about it that much. Like, why do I have this going on? But I think there's enough times that I have picked up to kind of a worried or panicked or sad or upset kid that it just keeps that fear going. Like last week, one of my grandsons had an accident and he's okay. But the moment that it happened and my daughter needed a ride and I wasn't at home to help and, the panic in her voice and not having the details of what happened. Those kind of things happen just every so often. And it keeps that moment of fear going for me. So I used to just think, well, it just happens. It's just a learned pattern over 30 years of parenting, probably 15 of those at least. The kids have had cell phones and there have been accidents and things over the years. But I wanted to start to work on that because it seemed like a sort of an easy, low-hanging fruit that I could just work on so I don't have to have that feeling every time and kind of spoil the experience of having my kids call me. So I started just taking a minute to be mindful when I see one of my kids calling and just be like, they're okay. Everything is fine. They're safe. We're good. And if anything has happened, we're prepared to handle it. We've handled everything that's come our way so far and all these years of parenting, so we're good. And I can just relax a little bit more. And it's so nice to have a little more sense of control over my emotions, even in little moments like that. So here's another one. When I was driving by the store tonight, actually on my way home, I thought, oh, I need to stop in. And I immediately caught myself going, ugh, no, the overwhelm just hit me immediately. And I was like, oh, what's this about? And I just very quickly realized that I have that thought every time I need to go to the store. I think because I have a long history of just over shopping, buying too much stuff, and I got to load it all up. Especially if you go through self-check, you need to do all that stuff yourself. Then you get it to your car, then you get it home, and then you've created a mess of groceries that need to be put away. I much prefer grocery pickup or meal delivery. But tonight I didn't have any of that stuff arranged. And so I just had to go in. So realizing that I was already feeling overwhelmed just pulling into the parking lot, I was like, okay, you know what? I can go in, get exactly what I need for tonight's dinner. Nothing else, no looking, no shopping, no preparing, even for tomorrow. Just going to grab a few quick things. But one of the things I grabbed was a rotisserie chicken. I thought, oh, my husband's not going to be happy about this because when he sees those coming home, I don't know why he feels like it's his job to cut them up. Probably because I always make it his job because he's more willing than me. And I really don't like whole chicken parts. And so he's always done it, but he doesn't like doing it because he's like, so much of it goes to waste. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to create that little bit of overwhelm for my husband. But you know what? That's what we're doing tonight. So anyway, I was able to go in, get my stuff, be intentional. It was only all right in the front of the store, and I was out of there in a few minutes, and I used that opportunity to pat myself on the back and say, there you go, I did it, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So for you, this might happen every time you have to change another dirty diaper or you see all the toys scattered all over the place. One of my daughters sent me a picture a while back where her kids had literally dumped out every Lego, and they have thousands. I think they dumped out everything in their whole play area and just having a great time, living their best life. But as a mom, doesn't that just give you the most sinking feeling in your heart? Those are the things that I want you to start to just raise your awareness of. And here's another big one. There was a book written a couple years ago called The Silent To-Do List. And I'm sorry, I can't even pronounce the author's name. I think it's like a Japanese name, but I'll link to it in the show notes. But the author made this amazing point that all the stuff in your environment is constantly talking to you and creating this almost unconscious to-do list. Dust this, wipe that. The books are saying, read me. The toys are saying, play with me or put me away. Or, the bills are sitting there staring you down saying, pay me. The laundry is saying, fold me. And everything in your environment can just be sending these constant sort of semi-urgent messages that can really add up as the day goes on. And no wonder we feel tired and drained when the afternoon rolls around every single day. And you know what? We kind of rinse and repeat that thought and that experience. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So from the time we get up and we're like, oh, I'm still a little bit tired. I didn't get enough sleep. And then, I have nothing to wear. I have to hurry. I have to wake up my kids. That's no fun. We're out of milk. It just goes on. And I'm starting to get depressed saying all this stuff, but that's what can happen. And then the silent to-do list items all over our house can really get to us. And there's a really good video on this that the Minimal Mom, who's one of my favorite people to follow online, she has a YouTube channel on minimalism. She did a good video on this, and I have a blog post that I'll link to, and it will help you see kind of what I'm talking about how we continually have these subliminal negative messages. I want to give you a couple more ways to identify maybe when you're feeling this unconscious negativity, and then I'll tell you what we can do about it. So one of the ways that I like to think about is I like little phrases that I can remember. And one of them that I came up with was identify the eye roll. Anything where you're like, oh my goodness. And you just like sigh, or you grunt, or you groan. I really sigh a lot when I get tired at the end of the day and I'm trying to maybe work on something. My husband will say, "You're sighing. Are you okay in there?" And now that he sometimes works at home, I'll hear him sighing as he gets tired throughout the day. So that's just our body's way of reminding us to take a breath and that kind of thing. But it can also indicate that we are experiencing some fatigue and some overwhelm. So identifying eye rolls, sighs, grunts, groans, any of that can be also a sign of some negative thought processes going on that have just kind of gone undetected under the surface there. So here's what I want to briefly introduce you to as an idea to help you have more positive emotion throughout the day. And that is to try to provide a positive and empowering alternative to that maybe subconscious negative thought that you've now brought up to your attention, like me with going into the store. I was able to say, hey, if I go in and I get what I want, that won't be too overwhelming. And maybe for you, it's all the diaper changes you have to do throughout the day. Everyone, they only take a few minutes sometimes, unless it's a major blowout. But if it makes you feel kind of just like, oh my goodness, here we go again, and the smell, and maybe you're even talking to your baby without realizing it, like, oh my goodness, this is so stinky. Goodness, what did you eat, baby? And it becomes maybe not a positive thing with you and your baby. But if you want that moment to be different, this sounds so funny, but maybe just like singing to your baby and saying, hey, great job, baby. Your digestive system is working great. And in other ways, we can do this by, one of the things I really like to do is have a rule that if something takes less than 5 minutes, just do it. I mean, you can only do so many of those throughout the day without getting all distracted and going every which way. But, folding a load of laundry really only takes 5, maybe 10 minutes, depends on the load, of course. Same with emptying the dishwasher, same with just washing up those few pots and pans, and maybe just paying that bill that just came in the mail. Just take care of it, and get it out of sight, out of mind, off that mental to-do list that we're talking about, that silent to-do list. So my daughter also has a rule that they say in their house, instead of passing it up, pick it up. And then for every time you manage to do something like that, you can actually really juice a little bit more happiness and satisfaction out of it by saying to yourself, look at me, good job, I did that. I took care of that little pair of shoes that was just sort of out there where everyone was tripping on it. Or I put those 10 cups from the summer day into the dishwasher instead of just letting them clutter up the counter. And so giving yourself a little bit of positive reinforcement, noticing what's going on for you, and just seeing how you can be empowered to get on top of those things and eliminate some of those negative thoughts that are weighing you down, because they really do. And you can imagine how they really add up throughout the day, and how the opposite is also true, how a little more positive reinforcement and encouragement of yourself could also really add up throughout the day. when mom is feeling positive and on her game and just like things are not a big deal, that really rubs off on everyone else in the house. And that is what I want to say to you. Like, sometimes toys are going to be out. Sometimes things are just going to be a little more than you can handle. You might have extra laundry from, a kid being sick or something, or you just haven't gotten to it, or there are just piles of things that you need to attend to, that kind of thing. And you can choose not to let those bother you once you become aware that they are bothering you. Or, even just like, have you ever sat in the bathroom toilet and you're like, oh my goodness, when was the last time I wiped those baseboards? Now, I'm talking about little things that might seem really insignificant, but to us moms, our home is our little corner of the world. And nothing feels better than like putting it in order, taking care of things, feeling like we're on top of it. It is a wonderful feeling, and it's contagious to other people in the house. So that's my encouragement to you this week, is to notice the negative and you kind of process through it, back up, see what's the thought that's causing me to eye roll and sigh and feel heavy and overwhelmed. And then, after you've given it some thought, provide a positive and empowering alternative. Now, before I end, I do want to say one word about this. There is a huge difference between just repetitive negative thinking that is just there when it doesn't need to be, because we've just learned these thought patterns over time and life is repetitive. So the same thoughts and actions are going to keep coming up. But there's a huge difference between that and when you're genuinely feeling something that you need to sit down and process. Like for me, if I'm feeling super sad, that just creates a real heaviness in my chest, in my whole heart area, that is telling me to slow down, I need to feel something right now, and I need to process something. I might need to cry and take time to just work through it, and maybe, depending on what it is, more than one time. That is so important, to acknowledge feelings like that aren't just like a daily overwhelm. And just a few quick tips on how you can do that. You can, first of all, go in your body and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Is it heaviness, tightness? Would I associate that with sadness or anxiety or fear or something like that? And feel all the sensations in your body. Notice exactly where you feel it. Is it hot or cold? Does it move fast or slow? Does it have a message for you? Like for me, that sadness that says, slow down. I need to talk to you. You need to feel something. And we might be tempted to push it away by getting on our phones or watching TV or reading or doing some little task or eating or cleaning. Do you remember that meme? Have you ever seen that meme from The Emperor's New Groove where the mom's like, I need to go clean something, like when she was really upset about a situation? And that can be a perfectly valid outlet for feelings that we might be having, but there's also others that need our attention. Our feelings are there to tell us something, and we might be able to cover them up for a time, but they will come back if we don't give them the attention that they need. Same is true for our kids' feelings. There's a saying that feelings that aren't talked out will be acted out. So if you really see your kids acting out a lot, there are probably some feelings that you could help them work through. And kids don't know, feelings just come, and sometimes they let them out, and sometimes they bottle them up, but they act not their best. So just keep that in mind if you're seeing behaviors with your kids that are bothering you or worrying you. So this is the kind of thing that coaching can really help with, is like processing feelings when you are really feeling sad, when you're experiencing ongoing frustration and overwhelm. That is something we can totally talk about. So I made some changes to my website. So now you can go on there and just type in a quick question. It's totally free. and then get it answered online, or you can pay for just one coaching session. So that's what I have available right now. And I also have my ebook that I wrote that just has a bunch of different topics. It's short. You can skim for a topic that you want to read more about and how mindset plays a part in that. So that's what I have for you this week. And thank you for tuning in. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast to help other people find this new baby podcast. I will see you next time. Hey Mama, thanks for listening to the show today. If you enjoy the ideas I share on my podcast, but you want some help applying them to your personal situation, I want to invite you to learn more about my coaching program, where I talk to moms on a personal basis. We can talk about anything from the personal challenges that you're experiencing in marriage or motherhood to the goals and dreams that you have for yourself. To find out more and download a copy of my free book, Mom Mindset A to Z, visit mom-mindset.com.